everybody. We are jumping in, if you remember, World War II. And don't forget that your test is April 25th of this year. Now, we're going to go further in, and we are going to talk about World War II, all of the things that you need to know for your exam. All right. So we're going to use some slides to work through this. Here we go. And these are the main topics that we're going to talk about. We've got appeasements. Let me see if it shows. Nope. Let's try. We've got appeasement. We've got Lend-Lease Act, dictator aggression. We have the Holocaust, Japanese internment, the atomic bomb, mobilization, military contributions, and military enlistment. These are the major concepts that we're going to go through. Now, going into any kind of war, we always ask you, what were the causes and then what were the effects? And so that's always kind of what we're looking around. So the initial causes, remember, many things can create war. Like many things can lead up on itself to where you eventually end up in war. Now, like if we looked at World War I, we know that there were a couple of things that were taking place. You had submarine warfare where Germany was ignoring the Sussex Pledge. You had Germany sinking the Lusitania. But at the end of the day, there's something that we call a spark, and that spark is going to be like the major thing that caused the war. For World War I, it was the Zimmerman Note. So let's get into World War II and find out some things that are going on. We know that when we left World War I, we created the Treaty of Versailles. And what I told you was that this is going to, I'm not spelling that right, Treaty of Versailles, okay, I think there's another L there, we go. So we know that we had the Treaty of Versailles, and it set up Germany for reparations. That's that, you know, one of those vocab words. So it means that you're going to be paying money back for the damage that was caused, right? So when, and we'll see this word, reparations, here in World War II when we're talking about Japanese internment. So if somebody causes damage and they have to pay back money for the damage that they caused, that is considered to be reparations. Now, Germany is considered to be the main transgressor of issues in World War I, so they're going to have to pay back reparations. And the reparations are so high that it is going to economically just decimate, so just destroy Germany, okay, from this, okay, which leaves them to a point of no return. When you get to a point of no return and you're like, nothing I do is going to fix this issue, then you're looking for the miracle cure. And the miracle cure that's going to come about is going to be Nazism and Hitler, okay? That is going to be the issue that comes about, okay? Now, the spark, Hitler is an issue, okay? But the spark that initially creates the war as we know it is actually going to be Germany invading Poland. So why is this important? Why was Germany invading Poland kind of like the straw, okay? So why is this the issue? Well, first, there's something that has to happen in the causes that creates the spark, and what is going to happen is what we've titled appeasement. Appeasement is it's a vocabulary word, and it means to give into. You're going to give into someone, okay, in hopes that you are getting something you want. Give into someone to get something you want, okay? So if a baby's crying, and because, let's say a 2-year-old is crying because the 2-year-old wants a piece of candy. Now, if I want to appease the 2-year-old, I will give the 2-year-old a piece of candy. But why am I doing that? So I can get the 2-year-old to stop crying or screaming or whatever for the candy. Now, We know that if we give in to a 2-year-old all the time and give them everything they want, if they cry for it because we want them to stop crying, then what the 2-year-old ends up learning is if I cry or scream, I get candy. So then we have this learned behavior that they can do something they're not supposed to in order to get what they want because the person that they're doing it to doesn't want to deal with them, okay? Now, the reason I'm giving you this scenario is because we have Germany. And Germany wants to expand, okay? This is not working. Germany wants to expand into the Czechoslovakia region. And they are going to keep pushing in order to get this. Now, what is going to happen is Great Britain and France, there we go. Great Britain and France are going to appease Germany, okay? And they're going to say, okay, Germany, we will let you expand if you plan to stay there. You cannot invade Poland, though. If you invade Poland, we're going to end up in war, okay? Now, everybody figured that the policy of appeasement would be a failure, and it is, because once Germany gets to expand, what Germany sees is that people are scared to stop them. If Great Britain and France were not scared of me, they would have tried to stop me when I was expanding into the Czechoslovakia region. They did not try to stop me, which means that there's a little fear there, and I know that I can continue. So Germany is going to continue into Poland. The policy of appeasement is a failure, just like it would be for anybody who is, there we go, just like it would be for anybody who is dealing with a toddler. Giving in just continues to reinforce that negative behavior, and so Germany will invade Poland and will end up in World War II. So those are the causes of World War II, but what is the reason that the United States is involved? Why is the United States involved? So if you notice over here, we've got some things going on. There's the policy of appeasement that I told you about. And remember, this PowerPoint is this Genially PowerPoint is actually in the website, which I will give you the link to at the end again. But here we have, it says, let's call it the Lend-Lease Act. So what is the United States doing? Not learning from prior mistakes. That's what. So let's put Lend-Lease Act. Well, if we want to remain neutral, that's fine. But economically speaking, we still want to make money, right? So we are going to have the Lend-Lease Act while we're still saying that we're neutral and we're isolationists, we're staying out of the war, right? Unfortunately, as we've learned in the past, when we try to make money on war, we end up putting ourselves out there. So this is going to be a problem. I'm going to put economics so that you remember this is an economics test question. When they ask you about the Lend-Lease Act, what's the United States doing? Well, we are supplying countries, and that's going to be a problem because we are supplying countries that are vital to our defense, which means that we're not necessarily neutral, okay? And so that's going to get us into some hot water. But what also gets us into some hot water is some other things that we are going to find out we cannot stay out of. I want to move this down just for a second. Over here. Okay. China. Now, if you remember back during the Progressive Era, we had something that we called open door policy. Now, open door policy is going to be free trade with China. Now, what does this matter, right? What's going on with China right now during World War II? Well, Japan is linked up with Germany, and Japan is going to be expanding. Okay, so Japan is expanding, and they're expanding into China, okay? And they are doing it in some pretty ruthless ways. And I think I have some slides over this later on in this PowerPoint, but they are expanding in some pretty ruthless ways. It's actually known as the Rape of Nanking, okay? And they're going to be decimating parts of China, expanding and taking it over. Well, what does that have anything to do with us? Well, trade. We have trade with China. These are areas of resource and stuff like that with regard to our trade. And of course, Japan wants to take out China because Japan is lacking on natural resources. So if they can take China, they've got a lot of natural resources that they can take. And so we're going to have to do something about this. Japan needs to stop messing with China. Not to mention we have our people living in China at this time. And so what are we going to do? How are we going to take care of this? We are going to do what we always do right at the get-go, and we are going to create an embargo. Okay, because we've got U.S. companies allowing Japan to purchase war supplies from them, like steel and like fuel and stuff like that. And so what we're going to end up doing is we're going to create an embargo on Japan to where they can't purchase any other war supplies. So no purchasing war supplies. So if we cut Japan off from the supplies they need for the war, not only have we been, taking place in that Lend-Lease Act, which was sending supplies to countries that would initially protect our interests, but at the same time we're putting an embargo on Japan. This is now clearly set a line of where we stand in regard to the war, and Japan is going to bomb Pearl Harbor. That is their response. Okay, so now we have been bombed, and Pearl Harbor is going to be our spark. Okay, that is the reason that we are now in war. Okay, so we know that Germany invading Poland is the reason that the war is going on in the first place, but we know that Pearl Harbor is the reason that we are involved. So just to make a quick chart there, World War II, start, and U.S. involved. Okay, those are always two different reasons, and they are reasons that we really have to consider memorizing because both of them are tested. So World War II start, Germany invades Poland. Okay, U.S. involved, Pearl Harbor. Okay, and remember, that's Japan. Japan is going to bomb. Japan bombs Pearl Harbor. Okay, attacks Pearl Harbor. Okay, there we go. Main things that you have to know. So let's move on. Now, most people know about the Holocaust, or at least you should since you've been in class. Right? The Holocaust is just a dark part in history. Where we're going to see genocide, and the same thing that was taking place in China. The genocide was taking place in China with the Rape of Nanking, and we've also got genocide taking place over in Western Europe and parts of Eastern Europe, and it's going to be against people of Jewish descent. And one of the questions that I've always seen as far as the Holocaust is concerned, it's hard to see here, but it's a quote by Dwight Eisenhower where he's talking about how bad the conditions were, how terrible what is going on over there. And so when you see a quote from him, you know that he's talking about the Holocaust. Here we have the reading over Pearl Harbor and going into the reason why Japan bombs us. That is an important section that you have to know. Let's get into Japanese internment though. So during all of this time, anytime that we go into war, the people that we're at war with, people of that nationality, tend to experience difficulties in our country from backlash and mistrust of them because of where they their ancestors or them have originated from. Now, Japanese internment is no different. So during World War II, the main group of people who are going to experience issues like this is going to be people of Japanese heritage, and they are going to be put into camps. Those are called internment camps. So pretty much they're going to be forced to live in a specific camp area. That's where they'll go to school. That's where they'll do everything. They'll leave their belongings behind, only take what they can carry. They'll stay there for years, and it will not be great living conditions. It will be hard on them, and they'll go because they're trying to prove that they're patriotic and that they love the United States and not the country they come from. They're not spies. So they're going to go ahead and go with this. It's not going to work in their favor. And of course, this is known as Executive Order 9066. Okay? So when you see anything talking about Japanese internment, or you see a picture of people of Japanese heritage who are carrying their belongings and their family is all going, we know that we're talking about the internment camps and Executive Order 9066. The other things that you have to know about this topic in regard to how it's tested is that Reagan will offer a formal apology to the families who were involved here, and he will also offer reparations. So there's that word again I told you that we would talk about again. So this means that the federal government is going to pay the family members that were put into internment camps, give them money back into their community as part of that formal apology. We will also have President Clinton issue a very similar formal apology for what has taken place. Okay. That's what you need to know about Japanese internment as far as the exam. So let's get into some of the effects of the war. What's going on? Well, that's one of the effects for the home front, but what are some things going on? What are the battles that are going to end up taking place that we absolutely have to know? Well, we have the Battle of Midway. Okay? What you need to know about the Battle of Midway is it is the turning point. So I'm going to write battles and what you need to know. Okay? All I want to go is what do you need to know as far as the exam is concerned. Okay? So we have the Battle of Midway. We have the Bataan. I spelled that wrong. Bataan Death March. We have Advancing Through the Pacific, and that's what I'm going to write here. I know it's titled Island Hopping. Advancing through the Pacific. And then we have Normandy, the Battle of Normandy, which is also titled D-Day. Okay, so these are our main battles that we have to look at. So what do we need to know in regard to these battles right here? So Midway, what do we need to know about Midway? This is the turning point of the war against Japan. Okay, so great movie out there over the Battle of Midway. We are going to, both of us are trying to plan a strike, but both of us are trying to figure out where each other's is. The reason that this is a turning point against Japan is because we end up finding out where they're located, and we are going to give a strong blow against their ships, okay, their aircraft carriers. So aircraft carriers are, quite a few of them are taken out. Okay, so this is going to hurt them as far as what they have. This is not like that's really important. It's important to know that, like, when you're in the war, do you truly believe that you can actually make it through? So let's get into now, there we go, the Bataan Death March. The Bataan Death March is going to be the marching of almost 80,000 U.S. and Filipino prisoners of war. So, to their death, right? So, marching, it's a brutal walk. Okay, nearly 80,000 to their death, okay? And we know that it's Filipino and U.S. soldiers that are going to be marched by the Japanese. Island hopping, okay? So this is the concept that, see, Japanese had taken, so Japan had taken the islands, okay? Some islands, by the way, that we took, that we had acquired during the Spanish-American War. All right, so I do want you to remember, we got to jump back. This is why we're always talking about how things are connected throughout units. So some of the areas that we had gotten or have been taken, like the Philippines. Okay, so we're going to be jumping each island. So all of the islands that Japan took, we are now going to be jumping and conquering in order to get closer to Japan. Okay, so just kind of us taking territory. This is going to be a strategy of war. It's one of the strategies of war. Who is over this? Who is over advancing through the Pacific? And now we will have Normandy. Right here we have General Eisenhower, who is the general over the Battle of Normandy. This is going to be one of the major wars in World War II that everybody remembers. The storming of the beaches of Normandy. Great scene in Saving Private Ryan that goes with it. Generally, what you're going to see with Normandy is the quote, "You are about to embark upon the Great Crusade." So when you see that, you know that we're talking about the Battle of Normandy. We're going to end up cutting German lines as far as their supplies are concerned, and we're going to catch them off by surprise. And that's going to be one of those. So like when we look at the major turning points for us in the war, Midway is going to be for us against Japan, and Normandy is going to be for us against Germany. Plant your victory gardens, can your foods, work in the factories, work as a nurse in the military, be Rosie the Riveter, Rosie the Riveter. Become an Army nurse. I said that one. Patriotism, buy war bonds and support your men. And of course, don't talk about the war when you are writing your love notes to your sweetheart who is fighting over in the war. Men should enlist, right? Show their patriotism. Work in the factories if you can't enlist, and buy war bonds. If you are too old to work or enlist, support your children who should be fighting over there while you're buying war bonds. Immigrants, show support. Don't be seen as a spy. Internment camps, Executive Order 1966. Germans are entrusted, Italians are entrusted, and Russians are entrusted, and then, of course, the Japanese. Minorities work in factories. Segregated military is still a thing, not equally honored. And Vernon J. Baker, who will get the Congressional Medal of Honor, okay? And, of course, we will see some changes after World War II regarding the segregated military. Now, the conscientious objector is somebody who objects. They do not support the war for religious or moral reasons. So They're constitutionally allowed to claim this based on their First Amendment religious right and that, free exercise, but they're often mistreated and abused, and they entered the military for fear of being ostracized and labeled a coward. So it's very difficult to be a conscientious objector. All right, here are people that we talked about a little bit. You're not really tested on Chester, but MacArthur, you may see some things, in regard to the atomic bomb and advancing through the Pacific. President FDR and President Truman are going to be your presidents here during World War II. Both presidents of the United States of America. FDR took the U.S. into the war and signed the Executive Agreement 1966 to put Japanese citizens in internment camps. Truman is going to end the war with the atomic bomb and see the U.S. into the beginning of the Cold War. There's Vernon J. Baker, your Congressional Medal of Honor winner. Now, here you go, your major groups that are going on in the war. Your Tuskegee Airmen, which is your all African American pilots. Now, if you remember the Tuskegee Institute from Booker T. Washington, remember he believed in vocational training. That's where we get that Tuskegee Institute from, and the Tuskegee Airmen. Anytime you see Tuskegee, we're talking about an all African American group. And then we have the Flying Tigers, not as tested as much. They're going to be your pilots that are working over in China to try and keep the Japanese army at bay. Navajo Code Talkers, those are your Native Americans who are going to be creating that code so that we can talk back and forth with each other. Really interesting fact, their code is never broke by the enemy. And it is one of the major reasons why we were able to win the war. The Manhattan Project and the atomic bomb. What do you need to know? And it is kind of right here. You need to know that the project, Manhattan Project, took place in New Mexico, Tennessee, and Washington. Then it was shipped over piece by piece and then eventually dropped on Hiroshima and Japan. That is what is tested over as far as the Manhattan Project is concerned. Japan will give their unconditional surrender after it is dropped. There's what it looks like. Look at the amount of people who died over for World War II, and this also includes the people who were killed in camps and stuff like that. And we are looking at 60 million people killed during World War II. That is everything that you need to know. It is very straightforward, the things that you need to know for World War II. So we are going to end this video. Let me hop back in. Here is the website that I want you to go to that has all of the things, including this presentation with the videos and everything in it, but it's got all your resources, all your vocabulary, anything that you can use to study for STAAR is there. Okay, and remember again that we're looking at April 25th as your STAAR date coming up, and we will be going into the Cold War. We are going to jump into the Cold War, and we're going to talk about quite a few things in separate videos along with the Cold War, which will be the Korean War and the Vietnam. Okay, so we'll be looking at these things going into your next video.